Hosting, producing, and publishing Convo by Design has been an incredible journey. 12 years now. And at the beginning of the show, I wasn't really sure with whom I was speaking. I set out to reach consumers interested in design. Then after a year or so, I realized that it was designers and architects listening and interacting with me. I met so many creatives, and that informed the show's development and the storylines that you hear every week. Then something amazing happened. I heard from more design clients for a few reasons. They were looking for a designer, architect, landscape designer, products for their own projects. Since 2020, there's been a transformational shift in both the trade and consumer side and what they're looking for from me, Convo by Design, and the design industry. I believe we are entering a new phase in design, one with far more well-educated clients, and the trade is responding because you have to. Through these conversations, clients have a chance to get to know the creatives that come on the show, get a chance to vet them for their projects, and designers can hear what other highly functional and successful creatives are doing to not just get more business, but evolve this amazing industry and evolve their own roles within this industry. It's in that vein that I share my conversation with Tima Bell of the Bell Design Group, a firm with offices in Los Angeles, Colorado, Madrid, and Argentina. A firm built with diversity and sustainability in mind. But when you hear how Bell puts these ideas into practice, I think you'll find it as fascinating as I do. Tima shared details about his architecture firm, emphasizing its meritocratic and egalitarian nature, with decisions ultimately made by him. Highlighted the benefits of a diverse workforce, including effective communication with clients from various backgrounds, and the use of Archicad, a BIM modeler popular in Europe. Tima also mentioned the company's support for staff with visas and the low turnover rate, attributing it to the strong friendships formed among diverse staff members. It's really amazing. Tima and I are both native Angelenos. We discuss the importance of embracing failure and trying new things in design and architecture. There's this acknowledgement that the issue of perfectionism in America, California and Los Angeles in particular, this exceptionalism is a goal, but it's not something that you can have every day, all the time on its own. You have to keep working for it. You know, this led to a conversation about simpler solutions to risk maps regarding fires in the US, while Tima emphasized the firm's approach, of learning from failures and continuously improving. It was really an amazing conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Tima Bell, you're going to hear from him right after this. I am just incredibly proud of this partnership I've got with Thermosol. They have been presenting partners of Convo by Design going on 5 years now. And there is a certain amount of pride that comes with saying that the show is presented by the company that is the best in the world at what they do. Thermosol engineers the most exceptional smart shower products and steam shower systems worldwide, full stop. And it's for a few reasons. First of all, they were the first company to design and patent the technology here in the United States, dating back to 1958. Thermosol, a US-based manufacturer based in Round Rock, Texas, employs an engineering team that designs, tests, and continuously refines the product. Their quality control team tests every single steam generator before it departs the factory. Who else does that? Nobody that I know of. I have the pleasure of working with some world-class designers and architects who tell me, and if you're in the business, you know this, that the idea of luxury has changed, especially when clients want a spa-like bathroom. Steam is mandatory. or it's just not considered a luxury. And if you want to add steam, you have only one true option, my opinion, and that's Thermosol. Mitch Altman, third generation CEO of this family owned company of 65 years, continues to innovate in the bathroom and shower space through technological marvels such as intelligent showering systems, sound therapy, aromatherapy, technical interfaces, and so much more. And now Thermosol, the industry leader in steam bath equipment and technology since 1958, as I mentioned, is enhancing its already stellar family of products with the new indoor and outdoor luxury saunas, available in 3 designs. The configurations are absolutely amazing, and you should probably go check them out. Indoor and outdoor options. It's amazing. You really do need to check them out. Go to thermosol.com or at Thermosol on the socials. One of the things that I noticed first off, after, I try to do my research. I try to dig a little bit, see what I can find. One of the things that I thought was so interesting about your website, by the way, your website is an architecture firm's website. It's not remarkable in any, it is what it is, right? But you have one of the most diverse groups of individuals within your firm, and I think it's astounding. Obviously, it was intentional, and
Yes.
you even mention it that people find their way through birth or migration, right? What is it about that diversity that makes the firm so unique and special?
Well, we have a lot of different diversity. I mean, obviously, diversity across all spectrums, gender, nationality, all the things that you would race, all of that. I think, first of all, it needs to be understood we're a meritocracy. We treasure passion and enthusiasm over almost everything else. I'm not going to deny that talent's important, and you need to have good working knowledge of the tools, and if you're experienced, maybe the code or some design principles. But if you're passionate and enthusiastic, that is already a markup in my book. So that's the first thing that we look at when we look at people to bring into the firm. We treasure. We're how do I say this? We're an egalitarian design company. I am obviously the head of the company, and I definitely make the final decisions, but all voices are heard. It's funny because we used to do it with interns. We don't have that many interns now, but when we did, their voices could be heard. We don't have a position where someone can't project their experience into a design decision. And what that does is it makes an amazing understanding of a project that if my whole office was from California, maybe we wouldn't get when we do a project somewhere else or with a client that's from somewhere else. So the input of the foreign representatives in the company, the foreign associates, the foreign staff is fantastic. I won't deny that there's an unbelievable advantage to have 16 languages. It is very rare to have a client or a consultant that we can't communicate with. That does sometimes make it a little difficult for English, but we provide some English tutoring. Obviously, ChatGPT has been a major assist, and we spend a lot of time working with the staff to make sure that their emails and correspondence sounds fluent and clear in English. But the advantage of being able to have French and German and Italian and Portuguese all come out, and Spanish all come out of the office is massive when it comes to that. So in almost every way, diversity is an advantage to us in the way that we perform as architects and designers and the way we communicate out to the environment. I will say that there's a little trick to this. I'm going to reveal my little trick. About 6 years ago, we switched to Archicad by Graphisoft. Archicad is primarily used in Europe. It is a BIM modeler. It is highly intuitive. It is a much less expensive program. At the time, we were growing, and the cost of Revit and AutoCAD was prohibitive. And we were moving from being that company that cracks programs to the company that buys programs. And we invested in Archicad and Graphisoft. And it's one of the best moves I've ever made. It basically, the types of resumes we get are from people that have knowledge in Archicad, and people who have knowledge in Archicad are often from a different country. And then the next part was we have great attorneys to assist you with your visa. We pay for some of the visa things. You know, we realize that out of country talent is as good as in country talent, and paying half a visa cost is really worth it for us to have those people come and join our firm. And they're appreciative and end up with very low turnover. I mean, I think our turnover is 5% a year.
That's low.
Very low for a firm. So I think last but not least, and I want to, because this is really exciting question, and you're one of the first people to ask this question. Diversity breeds friendships. When you come from another country and you don't know everybody, and you walk into our studio and there are 6 other people that got here and didn't know anybody, you're welcomed with open arms. You are helped to find an apartment or a car or best eating spots. There are both in-company and out-of-company events and hangout days and pizzas and parties that people go and join in and hang out with each other. I'm super excited at this firm when I hear over the weekend that 6 or 7 of them got together and went and played miniature golf. Not a company sponsored thing. They just like each other. And that's fantastic. I don't think that happens if everybody's from Los Angeles, for that matter, or California.
No, it doesn't. You know, it's interesting. So I'm a native Angeleno.
Me too.
And I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe in California exceptionalism. I believe in Los Angeles exceptionalism. And what is meaningful as it relates to design and architecture is this unwavering belief in embracing failure and trying new things, seeing what works, being willing to destroy something that isn't worthy and replacing it with something else that could be, should be, might not be, but if it's not, you know, we'll fix it. That being said, I think that with that comes the trappings of thinking that you're perfect. I don't mean you, I mean that one thinks that what they're doing is perfect, that everything we do here, architecturally speaking, is great. You know, there are little things like, I don't know, our risk map with regard to fires is insane in the US. It shouldn't be that way. You have things like a Venetian chimney in Italy that was created to arrest sparks and embers. And they did it in such amazing fashion and artistically so. What a simple idea that's made so wonderful. You get great ideas from people with other cultures because they think differently.
1,000%. I mean, you just nailed the ethos. And regarding the break it down and do it again, I know you're probably speaking with regards to design, but I want to say that goes into all facets: design development, construction documents, maybe not as much construction administration, but even there, we allow for failures. It's very rare that a failure in our office results in a failure in the field. Often we'll catch it, we'll discover it, we'll address it, and we'll teach it, and then it'll be retained, and it doesn't happen again. We spend every Monday morning going over some of these lessons. We call them lessons learned. Hey, you can't do things this way, or watch out for this, or a consultant might try and do this. So it's part of architecture, as you said. But I want to say it's not just part of design, because I know the mentality is design-wise, break it down, build it again, break it down, build it again, and we do that. But it actually finds itself in the other phases as well, where someone may include a note that's incorrect or a direction that's incorrect, and we catch it and we talk about it and we talk about the gray area of it and we kind of move it towards something. Or even if it gets past us and out into the field, we work on it with the contractor. We make it clear drawings are not perfect. Find the problem, bring it to us, let us fix it. We'll do it. We don't throw a ton of cost at it. We're not interested in change ordering to get better. So that is a big way we've retained a lot of clients. and obviously grown the architects in our firm. I'm very proud of them. We're not horizontally, we're sort of matrices as far as our staffing environment, but I would say that we train everybody here to be an architect all the way through that method.
I imagine too that it's a little bit difficult, and especially when we're speaking of California Title 24, the rules, restrictions, requirements,
Yeah.
and it's interesting too, because you get that too goes to this idea that we know everything. And so everything, and I think California is one of the best places and worst places to design, but it's also a bellwether for the rest of the country. Generally speaking, what starts in California, be it LA or San Francisco, generally translates to the rest of the country at some point in time in some way, not necessarily exactly, but the ideas, the ethos, the concepts, right? How does the international influence that you get through the people influence and inform the way that you envision the design of the firm?
It's another great question. Also something that I value within the firm. We had a woman from Brazil that joined us who is a wonderful project architect, has built, 7-story buildings and high end residential multifamily and single family dwellings, all in concrete, everything in concrete. So she gets here, and what does she have to do? She has to learn how to design in wood. She understands all the precepts of architecture, all the phasing, all the drawing sheets, everything's plan sections, elevations, details, all the stuff that goes into it, but has never built with wood. So when they arrive and they get handed something that they've never encountered before, the ones that we hire and that we go for, that passion and enthusiasm starts. And instead of saying, "Oh, I don't know how to do this," the response we get, "Let me learn. This is awesome. I am going to add to my repertoire so that I can build in concrete and in wood." And what eventually happens is invariably we get a building in concrete, and I can go to our Brazilian architect and say, "Hey, you know how to build in concrete. Let's talk about how to do this." Oh, bam, it's out there. So they bring with them a knowledge that may not come for a normal California build, but and they're which is enormously assistive, but they also are so invested in learning how to build in California that we end up with this enormously broad spectrum of projects that we're able to attack. Now, I do want to say, while we do build in California, we also build internationally. We have projects in Europe and in Canada and throughout the United States, and the value of obviously having Europeans and South Americans, Chinese, Asians in the office is remarkable when it comes to understanding different building methods, different building types. We have a little in-office program that looks at different types of architecture, and it's great when it's led by, again, the Portuguese, she brought in Oscar Niemeyer, or everybody brings in somebody different, So the native Californian in the office obviously brought in mid-century modern case studies like Schindler and Neutra, but the Dutch in the office brought in, Dutch master planning from the 90s. And it's fantastic to see these values are embedded within them and then come out when they try and express concepts and design the way to design and design focus to their colleagues in the office. It's really exciting. I like to think I'm like a mini OMA. That's maybe reaching, okay? But I love the idea that it's wonderfully spread and that everybody has a voice, and those voices come from different cultures, and we don't end up with a design that's stylistic. It's never, ever been my approach. From SciArc on, I've never had the approach of stylistic. I've always believed in the cooperation of minds creates an incredible design. And OMA does that pretty significantly. And their designs are weird, and they're not really always apropos, but they're excellent. And they make so much sense when you understand them in context. And that's what we aspire to with all these different diversity and cultures and thought process.
See, I love that. And I also think, give me your take on this. I feel like there is, here in the States especially, there's a fear of weird. Unless you're from Austin, then you embrace it. But there's a fear of weird. Weird has become this thing that's unnormal abnormal, not normal, and everything we do should be normal. I couldn't disagree with that more. I mean, if that were the case, Frank Lloyd Wright would never have built the Guggenheim. You know,
Right.
he would never would have designed the Guggenheim. If that were the case, the Brown
You don't
Derby.
get half the buildings out there. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
And, but here's the other thing. I believe, and I want your take on this. I think that design, good design, is a right, not a privilege. I think that it's something that everyone should have access to the same way that people have healthcare, because good design makes life better in and of itself because of what it does and how it performs. But somehow, some way, design, good design, be it interior design, landscape design, or architecture, has kind of gotten tied to the luxury movement, where luxury has to be attached to everything. And when luxury is attached to everything, then it's only the select few who have access to it, as evidenced by, you know, the media in, you know, Art Digest, for example, which focuses almost exclusively on celebrity. Well, if it's celebrity, it's high cost. It's generally not the best produced. It's clickbaity, right? And I think that we've between that and influencers, we've kind of gotten latched. Those ideas have gotten latched together. How do you combat that? How do you, and maybe you don't, but how do you approach that? Because I don't think it's microscopic. I think it's a macro issue.
I would say it's 70-30. The way I combat it is obviously we do our designs again, not based on formal aesthetic. It's more based on context, program, budget, and inspiration. When working with that, you have to present that to a client, and the 70-30 is on the client. 30% of them want, as you said, something that feels tied to luxury or tied to a name or tied to something that's already existing that can elevate it. This other 70% will understand the passion and thought process that went into the concept and normally buy off, which is why we managed to be successful. Ultimately, when making a presentation, we talk about how we got there. It's a big part of our presentation are the steps it took to achieve the design. And then when we get to the design, we talk about the design in reference to those steps and in reference to context and program. It doesn't always work. I have clients, this being Los Angeles, that want the glitz or the glamour. And invariably they think, oh, well, I'll just go out and hire a star architect. And I want to say to them, welcome to triple your budget. Welcome to delays. Welcome to problems, because those guys, they're fantastic designers. I won't deny that. They're architects for a reason, but in order to maintain that presence, everything is unbelievably high level of quality and everything is unbelievably expensive in the way they do it, and they're uncompromising. More power to them. That's not who we are. And sometimes the clients don't understand that difficulty. I made a presentation recently of a design that I thought was excellent and dealt with everything the client pushed forward. And their response was, well, it's not really Herzog and Demeter. And I'm just like, okay, well, yeah, maybe you should go talk to them and watch your $3 million budget hit 15 by the time you're done. You know, I mean, it's difficult. I do think the pendulum will swing. I actually have this argument with colleagues often. I am not from the beginning of my career, and if I look through all of my projects, it's pretty consistent. I work towards timeless. I work towards a design that isn't derided on trends. It isn't defined by of that moment. It isn't defined by the materials of the time. It's defined by so many elements that allow it to exist well beyond what would be considered dated. Am I successful every time? I don't know. Maybe not every time, but far more often than not, I can look back at projects and see things and not be able to date them or timestamp them because the materials used or the shapes or the forms. So that's really valuable to me. When I look at designers like Kelly Wearstler or other designers, I can see the stages of their career where they're sort of tacking on to what's popular and influential. And maybe that's like planned obsolescence from the design period. I just, like you say, I don't believe that. I think good design deserves to be from the lowest financial level to the highest, and I think it should be timeless as long as possible.
Well, and it's interesting too. And I'm going to ask an unfair question, but it's what we do around here. Um, I think part of it is expectation and meeting expectations. When you craft a building, when you design something in your mind, and I'm talking about the overall opinion of the whole firm, how long is that building supposed to last?
Forever.
Forever?
Yeah, I don't have it. The idea is that this is a monument that should last forever. And it's difficult because designing in Los Angeles, I basically cut my teeth on hospitality. And as you know, as a native Angeleno, we're lucky if hospitality lasts 6 months, right? You go 6 months for the hot crowd, and then it goes to Valley and Orange County for about 6 months to a year, and then it disappears.
Whoa, wait a minute. Are you, I grew up in the Valley. Are you throwing the Valley? Are you shading the Valley? Is that what you're doing?
I mean, I was designing clubs in Hollywood and West Hollywood and bars in Hollywood and West Hollywood. So these are sort of the giant rotations that happen, the Nacionals and all those ones back in the 90s and 2000s. I'm just saying that the mentality of interior design of hospitality is short-lived. And even then, I try and think, how can I make this thing last forever? That even if somebody comes in, they don't really change the design. That's funny because I've gone back to some of the restaurants I've designed and my bones are there. Everything I put in place is there. Maybe it's a different color of paint. Maybe they hung different light fixtures, but everything is there. And I can see it in any number of projects up and down, La Brea and La Cienega and Playa Vista and Venice. All the projects I've done are still existing in their bones form, with some of the detailed highlights, albeit another designer took over and painted it a different color. So the question of what our buildings are supposed to do, they're supposed to last. I like to think of them as long-term monuments. Will they? No, probably not. Many of them do. For the longest time, I had the longest running bar on Hollywood Boulevard. That was exciting. I had Improv Olympic, which was a improvisational club on the corner of, I think it was Cosmo and Hollywood Boulevard. It was an improv club. It was there for like 12 years, which was unheard of to have a bar on Hollywood Boulevard for 12 years. So I'm really proud of how we approach these projects in that way. I can't imagine. We do not plan for obsolescence in our projects. We do, flexibility is there. I will say that. We make it so that it's available to grow or shift, but the main elements are meant to remain.
You are listening to my conversation with Tima Bell. We'll be right back. The absolute best specifying designers, architects, and landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You just have to be. And you have to because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That is one of the reasons why I am so incredibly proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on 3 priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, the aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you my board flipping stories about my own wood decks over the years. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease of use and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious about the environment and they want the same of their materials and the companies that manufacture their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood. color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior. It's been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled materials. 85% recycled materials. Their advanced PVC vintage and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech. You can also check them out directly, timbertech.com. As a busy professional designer, you know how important it is to find the right partnerships. Partnerships that allow you to specify the right products for every project. Professionals like you don't just have time to sit around and waste, right? So let me tell you about one of my partnerships. Pacific Sales is here to serve you with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commissioned professionals to help you specify the right product for all your projects. Non-commissioned. That means their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that, with over 60 years of service in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. And you will find all your favorite brands, like Monogram, and their commitment to providing exceptional products, starting with materials. Monogram sources commercial-grade stainless steel on their refrigerators, unscratchable sapphire glass on their cooktop knobs, durable marine-grade bearings on their dishwasher racks. Monogram takes inspiration from the leading-edge materials used in the high-end automotive and aeronautics industry to provide you with lasting beauty and exceptional quality. The beauty is backed by the same level of attention to performance, which is why Monogram appliances are trusted and sought after by chefs all over the country. Chain-driven French oven doors that can be opened with one hand, and an industry-exclusive hearth oven that allows for all-electric indoor brick oven-style cooking without the need for external ventilation. These are just a few of the things that make Monogram so special. Pacific Sales features Monogram appliances, and Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team is here to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. And here's the cherry on top, access. Access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands like Monogram. Visit a Pacific Sales showroom today to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, where excellence meets expertise. And I asked the question because one of the things I think it's part of the issue is I'm putting a panel program together. By the time this episode has aired, it will already have taken place at the West Edge Design Fair in LA.
Oh,
you should come. You should come.
I went last year. Sure.
Yeah. So this panel is an interesting one. It's called Iconic Architecture, and the focus is what is worth saving versus maybe a less optimal example of a wonderful architect's work. For example, 2023, there was this whole issue in Beverly Hills over 1001 North Roxbury.
Yep.
I don't know if you're hip to the argument or the whole conflict, but the kerfuffle was big. And I covered the city council meeting and I recorded it and I played a lot of it back on an episode. It's like, look, this is the takedown. You have an architect, you have a builder who was on the list of architects worth saving in Beverly Hills. This home was, you had Jack Benny on one side, Lucille Ball on the other. The home was in AD. The home was in Lux. It was a beautiful example. It was pristine to the day the wrecking ball hit it. The property was bought for like $49 million just to tear it down and build something huge.
Yeah.
And what I said at the time, and I'll say this too now, I don't care. I don't care because it's none of my business. I don't care because I don't live in Beverly Hills. I don't live on North Roxbury. I didn't walk by the house. I didn't grow up there. I don't miss the memories of it not being there. However, property owner comes in, buys it, wants something different. But when a city says that this is something that is earmarked for saving, that it's on a registry, that it's supposed to be taken care of and revered and loved. And then you allow this to happen because some $1,500 an hour attorney comes in and basically dismantles you in 15 minutes. You can go listen to the episode and hear what this guy did. It was staggeringly talented. I mean, it was amazing.
I got to get his name.
But yeah, but at the end of the day, my heart is with the designers because there's pieces of personality. There's amazing work that goes into this. There's thought and there are ideas about how to make life better, how to make this place better than you found it through your work. And I think that architecture and design has become so ephemeral and temporary. You know, to just build something and then tear it down 20 years later. You go to Europe, that doesn't happen. You go to Asia, that doesn't happen. It happens here because we're such a young country. But when does that philosophy change?
It's a great question. Again, my favorite aspect or evidence of this is meta beyond that, which is the Kanye demolition of the Tadao Ando house. You know, he bought the Tadao Ando house, they took a bunch of friends, smashed all the glass, ripped off all the facades, and left it. And you know, it's desecration of masterful architecture, right?
In Malibu, right?
In Malibu. Yeah. That's the evidence of it. And that's how I felt initially. Oh my God, how could you do that, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe he's saying something. Maybe this is his expensive piece of art. Maybe he has the money to buy a house, buy a master and destroy it and say, there, that's your house. You don't get to have this. You get to have a version of this that's not there. And so it totally flips the thought on its head. And I've actually had this conversation with everything from flea market vendors to Michael Rotundi I've talked to a number of different architects and artists about what it means to take something that's precious and destroy it, and then either redesign something that's not precious or leave it in a state of decay as evidence that something was precious. And I find it far more philosophical than visceral. And that is something I think also as I grow older, as you grow older, you learn to accept loss a little bit more. Whether it's a storage unit that you didn't pay for and everything you owned got lost, right? For whatever reason. Whether it's a fire that destroyed, I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar lost probably the best collection of jazz records at the time when his house burnt down in 1978. I mean, the best collection of jazz records, if you can imagine, gone. All of his jerseys and trophies gone. I mean, there's a level of cleansing and there's a level of understanding your place in the universe when all your things are taken away. And when you realize that sense of loss, the objectivity, the preciousness of a building or a design maybe fades a little. And yes, it tugs at the heartstrings, right? Like a lost love that a building like a Schindler or as you say, the one on Roxbury gets knocked down and something replaces it. In 50 years, it's likely no one will remember. In 200 years, guaranteed no one will remember, right? And the only really recognition we have are these you know, the film, the digital images, maybe some video. I think that's kind of how we have to realize our world at this point. We because of our access to so much, we're tied to these objects in a far different way than our predecessors. In the past, if a house got knocked down, it was gone, right? There wasn't even pictures of it. Now we have all this recognition, which is still great. But ultimately, at the end of the day, loss is a part of life, and you kind of have to give it up. It's painful because all loss is painful, but at the end of the day, it happens, and I don't think you get away from it. And so this idea of the meta of Kanye saying, "There's my precious object," smashes it, and then says, "That's your precious object." Well, that is precious now. What does someone want to say when that gets torn down? Right? What is, you know, it's the Banksy, right? When he tears up his own, he puts the art through the shredder. So I have I'm in line with you in that I don't care. It's more philosophical. It's not so much that I walked past or grew up in my neighborhood in Venice Beach is not my neighborhood in Venice Beach. There's maybe 4 homes existing from when I grew up down there. The rest of them are all brand new, and that's fine. I see. I'm on the neighborhood council. I see the change from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I saw this cycle of change, which has helped me understand growth and loss, culture shift, and I realized we just can't hold on to things. That being said, I just went to London for the first time, and I was disappointed. I
Really?
was, yeah, I was disappointed because it didn't feel like the other European cities that presented all of their age on display. And that was curious. And I'm struggling with it. I'm in my head, I'm struggling with it because there were the social reasons that I didn't have a great time, but that's different. I think London's just a different animal socially. But in general, architecturally, I had expected something, and it was far more contemporary in its engagement. First level stores and consumerism just on blast, on display all the time. The aged elements faded to the background. Second floor up, pushed back. They're not incredibly ostentatious, which I thought they would be, and they don't seem to treasure the heritage in the way that Spain or Barcelona or Paris does. So it's very curious to to experience that firsthand. And I was struggling with why didn't I like London, and I think it's because of that lack of recognition of their history. But at the same time, what I'm arguing for is why do they need to recognize it? I was just shocked. I had gone there expecting a European city, and it does not feel like it. So
It's so interesting you say that because I think I left. It's been a long time since I've been to London. It was a very long time ago that I visited London, and I think I had some of the same feelings. You know, the
wait till
one
you go
thing,
now.
yeah, I'm sure. But one place I did go recently for the first time, and I'm curious if you've been, is DC. Have you been to DC?
I have not for a long time, so I wouldn't. I can't really remark on it. Someone just told me that that's the best place to live in America, as far as cities.
You know something? I will tell you. I think that every city in the country could look at DC, and while you may not want, every city's got problems, right? But if you look at what DC is and what it does and how it presents arts, culture, design, architecture, experience, it's extraordinary. And I think too that we don't have architecture critics the way that we used to. And I think that because we don't have critical thought publicly about architecture, a lot of crap is built, and a lot of really meaningless, vapid structures just for the sake of doing it. And I was thinking about this because every building I went to in DC, some of them I'd look up to see what the thought of the day was when this particular, because you've got old buildings next
Sure.
to new buildings, and it's kind of cool. And there was this one building, it was the Library of Congress building. It was the Madison building, Library of Congress. And it was built in the 70s. And I looked it up and it just got panned. I mean, it got destroyed. And as I look at it, I was thinking, yeah, that's fair. I can totally see why they didn't like this. It cost a ton. It's big. It's a behemoth. It's a monster.
Right.
But it's not particularly well done. It's not imaginative for what it was, right? Would you welcome criticism like that? Would you welcome architectural critique the way that we used to have it 50s, 60s, 70s?
Yes. I mean, the answer to the basic question is yes. I find all criticism uh, totally acceptable. As the dude would say, well, man, that's kind of your opinion.
It's kind
I'm
of your
okay.
opinion.
I'm okay with that. What, and it's funny. I had just this conversation again the other day. architecture has lost its ability to define itself because everything is everything. You know, there's nobody is a part of a movement, a part of a group, a part of a stylistic, a theoretical. Those don't really happen anymore because you can do anything and you can do anything anywhere. And so at that point, what are you criticizing? It becomes very hard to criticize a building that has no rules. So if someone decides to build a stucco box in California versus a articulated facade in Mexico City, how can you argue the two? You know, it becomes purely aesthetic choice. There's nothing really to dig into as far as meat. I don't think we'll ever find our way back with the amount of information we have at our fingertips, going obviously, like we just talked about, the historical nature of recording all of these previous structures and concepts and theories moving forward. There, it's almost like a menu. I can pick and choose. Oh, I'm going to go with this. Oh, I'm going to look like this. And it's very hard to define yourself in that way, which is why I'm happy the way we're doing it, which is really using context to make a definition. And I find that maybe is the one element that can push you into a special place, but they're not striking. I'm never going to design a Gehry structure. I'm never going to do a Coupe Himmelblau because those projects they could give a shit about context. It is this movement on a page that defines the origination of that concept. And it's art into architecture in a way, you know, theory directly into architecture. And it's very hard to make that happen and have it mean something in today's society. It becomes essentially very formal, which falls back to your earlier question, which is it becomes very trendy. And it's very hard to create a building that doesn't have that and follows that. I prefer to follow context. I think that we make buildings that are striking and powerful. I prefer moments of discovery in and around the buildings that we do. I have a shade structure on one of our buildings that's designed in such a way to allow mothers to view their children playing and also to offer shade from 3 o'clock on when the sun goes by. You would never know it by looking at the building because it's just a series of sticks or slats in a strange pattern. So I think there's deeper meanings that can be found in buildings that the architects don't reveal, but the residents of a building or people interacting with the building find and make the discovery of. And when they do, it's pretty incredible. I'll get phone calls now and then of someone who made a discovery in one of our buildings, and they're blown away. We have a building where we did a color choice of all robin's egg blue, orange, and kind of a dust brown. And they don't, you could argue that they don't feel right, except for that there was a poppy for the orange. The sky is the blue, and it's on a very sort of dirt, it's out in Lancaster, so it's kind of a dirt environment. While they hated the drawdown colors, when the building was finally finished, when you go there and you look up and you catch these relationships, it clicks. And I had a client who complained about our color choices until she went to the end of the project and then said, oh my God, it fits perfectly in this environment. And that's the kind of thing that you can do with architecture that doesn't need to be so formally expressive. Although it doesn't fall into a world of styles or themes. So critiquing it ends up being a little difficult. I find some of the criticism on architecture today, and it's out there, just I find that they may not have understood the project.
Well, you know? and that's the other thing. And unfortunately, look, and this doesn't have to be a total bitch fest, but I do think I do think it's important to point out that, you know, you've got the traditional trade publications like an Arc Digest, and I pick on Arc Digest because I want so desperately for them to be better. I want so desperately for them to be what they once were, and that is an architectural digest. I know, but what's happened is
it's not going to happen.
It's gotten inextricably linked to a luxury movement, and more money means a better project, which doesn't actually translate, but that's the idea. And that it's, you know, celebrities know something about architecture and design, which, unless you're talking about a maybe Venus Williams and a Lenny Kravitz,
Correct.
then
With
they
his
don't.
fur tunnel, he's got the fur tunnel.
Yeah, well, I know that Parisian apartment, that Paris apartment of his,
Yeah.
is exceptional.
Yeah.
And he's got his own design firm. So does
Yeah.
Venus Williams, which I think
Right.
is really kind of cool. So they're kind of putting their money where their mouth is, um, and it's more serious to them than just a temporary endeavor. But I want to kind of explore some of your work a little bit,
Sure.
and I want to talk about some projects. The first one, I don't know if this is a concept or it's been completed, but the juxtaposition is just so interesting to me. The Compton Agri-Hood.
Yeah, that's a really special project. That's a special project up and down. So many things learned on that project. We had three educators, teachers that came to us. All of them were equestrians. They ride horses. Compton has an enormously rich equestrian heritage. Apparently, it was the place for horses until a lot of it was deeded over and it became for all the other things, the housing and warehouse and industrial. But there's still a significant portion of Compton that is designated as equestrian. And they found a landfill site that was a brownfield, and it was sitting there. No one could build on it. And they came to us and said, "We'd like a rodeo. We'd like to create an environment for equestrian therapy, an environment for a rodeo for brown and black alike, because there are multiple communities within Compton that enjoy horses, and then also an area for the community to gather." And so we started off pro bono, and we worked with a land use attorney at Somos, also pro bono, Alfred Freyo. We worked with these three educators. We worked with the city of Compton, and we put together a workable plan that could be built on this site. We had hoped to get it completed by the Olympics. I think right now, funding is obviously a roadblock. We have met with some interested parties. There's greed among developers, and it's difficult to explain that to three educators because they're coming at it from a wonderfully philanthropic endeavor. And developer greed plays in, and they're not interested in playing to that. So it's a bit of a back and forth of finding the right sponsor and the right developers. But the mentality of improving a brownfield with something that can improve a brownfield. You can't build houses on this property. Really, the only thing you can build on this property is heavy industry, which no one wants in that area. Or this particular concept, which is greening the land, parking environments so that we have flea markets and gathering opportunities, paddocks and training areas, a rodeo, and a community center. And then we have one area that's not on the brownfield itself that we started to designate for affordable housing. So it has been a labor of love for the firm. It is one of the projects. We do a number of projects that we do pro bono for improvement of the community and improvement for the environment, and that was one of them. Really proud of it.
Will this get completed?
Great question. I'm pushing. I hope so. Our office, my studio director and associate principal is Jinan Nguyen. She's been spearheading this charge. We have probably carried it as far as we as a firm can carry it without funding. Do I go to high-level meetings and present it as an opportunity? Absolutely. It's more difficult with the interest rates being what they are, because whatever has to do, it has to be a construction loan. I suppose it could be completely funded by a source. Yes, I'm going to say yes because I'm forever the optimist. That's one of the things that we do well.
Well, listen, it's always about who gets behind a project, right?
Oh.
So look, I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now, and here in Tulsa,
wow.
They have the Gathering Place. The Gathering Place is, look, I'm going to say it's the greatest American park ever. It's more experiential than Central Park. It's not as big, but it doesn't need to be. It's on the river. They have a whitewater experience now. They have a pedestrian bridge. It was like $130 million project. I think donated land was donated. This it's just an extraordinary project. But what it did, and I've seen this firsthand, is it reinvigorates a city, and it empowers those who didn't have access to things like that. They built it where they built the gathering place because it would give disadvantaged communities
Yeah.
equal access
Yeah.
to this. They wouldn't have to drive through all these other neighborhoods to get
Yeah.
to it. It was there. And I say that with a full understanding. Like, so I told you, I'm native Angeleno. I grew up in the Valley. One of my summer jobs when I was young in college was I worked for the county clerk of Los Angeles, and I used to drive. I spent an entire summer moving files
Oh, wow.
from the Venice courthouse, the Van Nuys courthouse, to Compton, because they had a bigger storage facility there.
Right.
So I drove to Compton 3 times a day for an entire summer.
Oh, jeez.
I got to see a lot of Compton.
I bet.
This is late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the residents of Compton at that time had something to look forward to, if they had something that enriched their lives locally, that could give them a source of pride, you can turn a neighborhood around.
Oh, absolutely.
Giving people something that will ignite their spirit will turn around a community.
The community outreach we've had on this project has been spectacular. Like, we'll throw events with the developers, with supporters, and they're enormously attended. 300-400 people. They end up having picnics, and they have rides. They have horse rides, and a lot of single family residents in Compton are allowed to have small livestock farms behind their houses. So one of the guys, the educator, has a 3 horses, a cow, 2 pigs, chickens. It's like a little farm behind him. So there is a whole world that is available to a lot of Compton residents that would be amazing if something like this could come across. Yes, it's about who's backing it, and obviously putting it in front of the right people is very important. And it's difficult, to get something like that across. I do believe it will get done. I think we're going to find that angel who believes in something like this for the neighborhood. And you'd think, with Compton being the second highest earner in the music business ever after Nashville, you would think that one of those guys would see something to improve the neighborhood, and maybe they will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope it gets done. I think it's cool. And by the way, so if you're listening to this episode with Tima, and you want to follow along, check the show notes to the firm, and you can click on links to go see the projects that we're talking about here. Next one I want to jump to is because you mentioned your love and passion and background in hospitality. The V Hotel, Venice. Yeah. Hotel. Is it the V Hotel?
Or it's the Venice V, but it's also known as the Waldorf.
Okay.
There's, go ahead. You can answer your question, but I mean, for me, that was just a labor of love.
No, you know where I'm going. You know where I'm going.
I got 5 decades in Venice, and the client came to me with a 1918 building, 36 rooms, and said, "This is yours." He preferred a themed environment. It took him a moment to say, "Listen, as much as I love themed Venice, the turn of the century 1920s canals and Charlie Chaplin, I don't think that resonates. I think what resonates in people's mind when you think of Venice Beach is bohemians and artists and skaters and surfers. So let's try and create an environment that represents that." The goal was to create each unit to feel like a apartment in Venice. Having grown up there in 5 decades, I was able to tap into local artists, friends from 30 years ago. Just across the board elements to put in these rooms. I handpicked all the decor. Now, obviously, I have staff. I'm not going to say that this was by myself. I had fantastic people working with me, but every decision was mine. I will say that. From the chairs to the books on the coffee tables, we kept the outer shell of the building original to maintain the fact that there was an original Venice. And every unit, there were 3 unit types. There was the Bohemian, which was a world traveler that just got back to Venice, kind of broke, but into tactile art. So you've got the woven things on the wall. You've got sculptures in the room. Everything's kind of whitewashed out because the furniture's been found in the speedway. We also had an artist room, which is black painted. You know, a typewriter, a bottle of Jack Daniels, and a speaker as a refrigerator. And the idea is you just, you know, get drunk, write poetry, and have sex in your room all day. You know, kind of Jim Morrison, Basquiat kind of thing. And then you've got the skater room, which is plywood, stickers, concrete, and really sort of simple. We have a light that's a skateboard. We actually had a skateboard on every room that you can take off and go skating and buy when you leave the room. So every room has its own custom-made skateboard by a skate shop in downtown LA, where the kids made the skateboards, and if they get sold, they get like a bonus credit for the skate shop with more ramp time, and it's all this sort of community interaction. It's the biggest secret in Venice. I think it's not promoted very well, interestingly enough. There is no better hotel in Venice. And I'm not saying that because I designed it. I'm saying that because I've been to all the hotels in Venice. The Irwin, none of them have the standard of care and thoughtfulness with respect to the community the way that this hotel did. The problem is it's not a Kelly Wearstler, and it's run by Proper.
It's not what?
It's not a Kelly Wearstler design, and it's run by Proper Hotels. So Proper can't promote it the way they would other projects because it's not a Kelly Wearstler design. If you know anybody that goes to Venice and you ask them to stay at this hotel, you'll see what happens. They'll come out of there being like, that was unbelievable. I was on the boardwalk, I was in that environment, and I was in my apartment in that environment.
You know, it's interesting because that reminds me of I was back home, Manhattan Beach, recently, and I had a chance to sit down with Michael Zislis. I don't know if you know Michael Zislis, but big into restaurants, big into hospitality, and he built Shade, the Shade Hotel, which is downtown Manhattan Beach, right on what was the Metlocks pottery, which had to sit in remediation for decades. You know, it just sat there because you couldn't do anything with it. But he built this square, and he built kind of like the same sort of methodology. Like, I'm going to make this about home. It just reminded me of that, that hotel does very well, and it comes down to the operator, right?
And that's the thing. Proper is an unbelievable operator. Yeah. Like, they are amazing. The staff at that hotel and the care they give to the guests is exquisite. If I read through the reviews, 50% of the reviews are, this place is amazing, the decor is amazing, and 50% of the reviews are, oh my God, the staff is incredible, we are treated like excellent guests, right? So you have to have that to have a successful hotel. Yeah. I couldn't be prouder of my design and decor, and I couldn't be more proud of the fact that Proper came in and nailed it when taking care of guests, because Venice is eclectic. It's weird. You know, it's a lot to take in. So you need this sort of place to reside that decompress, and they make that happen.
You know what I'm going to try to do? This is a concept for another day. I'm not editing it out. I'm putting it in there, but I want to follow up with you later. So West Edge is in November.
Yeah.
And it's at the Barker Hangar.
Yeah, that's where I went last year. Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can arrange to stay there so that I can do a review.
You should.
I'm going to see if I can
reach out to me after. I'll put you in touch. I'll see if I can. I can't give you direct hookup, but I can give a connection, and we'll get you in there.
No, because I just looking at the images. Yeah, I really love it.
It's special. Every room has an ocean view. I mean, look, I was given a gift of this hotel because it's also amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was 36 rooms, which isn't a ton of rooms. It's a boutique hotel. We soundproofed all the rooms. You know, obviously every hotel can't be perfect, but we soundproofed all the rooms. Every unit has an ocean view. And with those three concepts, it's amazing. And my favorite on the rooftop are these individual spaces that were already there. I mean, I painted them pastel and I made them bungalows with white picket fences so that you're in your bungalows in Venice. You know, that's your penthouse room.
I love that.
Exceptional. Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions for you about this project, because with a firm understanding of the neighborhood and a keen understanding of some of the challenges that neighborhood possesses and provides to any developer, any architect, any designer, any resident who lives there. So you mentioned the noise abatement. which I think is interesting. I want to know how you approach that, because it's in that whole main that main walk
Yeah, the
street,
boardwalk. Yeah,
the boardwalk. It's noisy and it gets
yeah,
sketchy after dark. It just
yeah.
does, and but it always has, and that's part of Venice.
Part of Venice.
So, how did you address that part of it? How did you address, or did you address? I believe that a great deal of security can be designed into a building, but
Sure.
not if you're not given license to do that. I'm curious, were you, and how did you approach that?
This, I will say, it was one of the more challenging projects across the board. It is what's called an apartment hotel. So there are two permanent residents in the building. So we're working around permanent residents. There were 11, nine of them were bought out. Something totally legal to do.
Was it rent control?
It was rent control.
Yeah.
But he didn't Ellis Act. He offered them enormously fair. I mean, some of them had enough to buy a house after they left this apartment. Two of them decided to remain. And that made a lot of people in Venice angry because they felt that this was a rent-controlled apartment building. It had a designation as a hotel. It was a hotel. It never officially got converted. It had this gray area designation of an apartment hotel, which we have findings now in the city of Los Angeles that an apartment hotel can act as a hotel as long as it has a certain number of units set aside for long-term residents, which in this case is two. We had 9 permits, and our coastal hearings were appealed. Our planning department hearings were appealed. The neighborhood came out in force against it. I was by the book on every level all the way through to push the whole project through to the end where I got met with the final inspector and he said, I've never seen someone be as diligent and as thoughtful and as straightforward as you have been on this project. Because at any moment it could have had the legs knocked out if I don't cross a T or dot an I. The same concept goes into security. There are little things like I made sure there's a set-in brush rug to wipe your feet before you go in the door so sand doesn't get brought into the building. The doors are locked during business hours. I mean, unlocked during business hours. I think they choose now whether or not to open them from the front desk. There's obviously the ring system that goes through. There's cameras on the floor levels to make sure that residents or that guests at the hotel are, monitored at least in the corridors that nobody gets in. And so far, from what I talked to the owner, I just talked to him yesterday, they haven't had any major problems with the hotel itself. Obviously, once you leave the hotel, you're in Venice. The guests are
Yeah.
going to, I mean, the staff is going to tell you, but they also provide bicycles, they provide surfboards, they provide roller skates, they provide umbrellas. So the whole concept of being in Venice is a little bit enhanced, that you don't have to go to the sketchy dude and pay $120 for a bike. They got one for you at the hotel when you rent your room. That if you wanted to take a skateboard out, they have a skateboard for you to go and test out. They have a little guidebook that we help prepare that has, 6 or 7 of the best restaurants in the neighborhood. There are walking tours the hotel provides for moving around and looking at all the murals up and down the boardwalk and in the area. And I got them a surf instructor who's a good friend of mine to give them, firsthand surf lessons. So it's about making sure that you get the best parts of Venice, so that what you don't have is that maybe the difficult part only as your experience. With regards to sound, double thick floors, double thick walls with clips to sound isolation clips and new triple paned windows. It's about the
That's
best. And
amazing.
it's all corridors.
And I'm just curious, is it I think Venice is still a non-territorial spot, like the break
For
is still
surfing,
not.
it's gone now. It used to be pretty rough.
Yeah.
Now there's lessons at breakwater. Whereas breakwater used to be you'd go in, maybe you get your ass kicked. Now
Yeah.
everything goes. There's
Yeah,
there's
but it's
no issue.
been still, I mean, it's been peaceful for a while
Yeah,
now.
for a while. Yes, and it's funny because there's a great Instagram that's this guy. I think he's called the Rambler, and he's doing a thing called Focus on Venice, and he's got a lot of people talk about what it was like to grow up there, what it was like to arrive there, and it's funny. You listen to those people talk. That's what it feels like to be in our units. To be in those rooms. That's really special. Like I have artists that I took straight off the boardwalk and put their art on the walls, and then recognized. I mean, there's just special moments to take advantage of the culture.
What does that mean to you as a creative who actually gets to, who's a creative, who's doing something in his hometown, who has a chance to do something that's gonna outlive him.
Yeah, I mean, we go back to the timeless, right? We go back to the
Yeah,
monument.
yeah,
I actually have an interesting answer to this. My background is as a painter, as an artist. As an artist, everything is ephemeral. You got to let it go. You finish a painting and it's not, you sell it, it's not yours. You don't even know where it's going to go. Be sold, 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 right? I have art that I buy that I'm sure nobody knows that I have. The original artist has no idea where that piece is. I kind of feel the same way about architecture. I will talk about my process passionately. The process of creating those spaces, I'm so proud of. And obviously, the final result is excellent, and I'm proud of that as well. But if that thing got turned into a Kelly Wearstler design tomorrow, I would still be passionate about in a conversation with you. And I would lament the fact that you couldn't enjoy it, but I tell you just as passionately how I got to it. So for me, process is almost everything. I am incredibly passionate about everything I do. That was a labor of love, and luckily it got something that I was so familiar with, which is always an advantage. But really, I apply that method of love and passion and enthusiasm and enjoyment into all the work. There really isn't a project where we get some creative ability where that doesn't apply. So yes, I love what I did in my hometown, and I'm actually doing more things in my hometown, and I'm proud of them. But I have no problem walking away and talking as much about the next affordable housing project we're engaging in San Diego.
yeah. I love that. And by the way, something else I just want to point out because I think it's important, and I think it's great, and I think it's healthy. You dropped Kelly Wearstler in there 3 times during our little chat, and it's interesting. I bring it up because sometimes everyone's so, I've got to be so nice. I've got to be so politically correct. I've got to be so careful about what I say. It's, I would like for more people to recognize that it's okay to not like somebody else's work. It's okay to not like what it is that somebody else is doing. And I think it's okay because that's the nature of a healthy critique.
Yeah, I mean, I will attribute some of this to my girlfriend who doesn't like the Beatles. That's a hard thing to swallow. That's a hard conversation, and we've had it numerous times.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing is, Kelly's a good designer, but not in what I think is a good designer. Like her projects are thoughtful and clean and approachable and successful, right? So I can't argue any of those things. I don't like the way she thinks, and I don't like the aesthetic she chooses for a lot of the work. I'm not going to say all because we all have broad approaches, but the way she approaches things, it's just not the way I would. So I have a problem with it.
So
That's the thing. So I'm not saying she's a bad designer in technical
no,
ability.
no,
It comes to aesthetic.
look, I totally get it. I think many will agree that she's formulaic. But here's what's interesting. And I bring it up because I think it's interesting because my backstory, for a number of years, I was the general manager and program director of Playboy Radio. So
Oh wow.
I worked for Playboy, and
Oh yeah. So yes.
Kelly was a playmate. I think Kelly was a playmate of the year.
Yeah.
There's something that I learned about playmates when I worked for Playboy, and I tell this story all the time because I'd like to impart every creative who's out there. And by the way, we're running long. Are you still good on time?
I have a meeting, but I got another 5 minutes. How's
I'll
that?
wrap it up.
All right.
Um, the thing about playmates, and I tell this to every creative, imagine you do what you do, and you just got your dream job, and that dream job is going to get you a ton of publicity and promotion. It's going to get
Right.
you exposure. It's going to get you to events that you've never been to before. It's going to open the doors for everything that you've ever wanted, and you get it for 30 days.
Yeah.
If you're a playmate of the month, you get that for 30 days, and you know that at the first of the next month, it's somebody else's turn. So you have to learn how to make hay while the sun's shining. You have to learn how to grind. You have to learn how to take every one of those days, sleep the least amount possible so that you can make all the travel and do all the things and go all the places. Because at the end of that, you're done, unless you're Playmate of the Year, and then you get another month or two of high pressure. So what Kelly has done is she took that drive and motivation. She created a design firm, which clearly she's good at it.
Yes.
But her work, I don't know. I don't think it's a criticism negatively to say that it's formulaic, because it is. You can look at it and you can tell a Kelly Wearstler design,
and it's trend based. That it's not intended to be timeless, and those are things that for me don't resonate. And that's where the difference comes into them.
Yeah, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I just think I love when people are willing to have these conversations, because I think it makes us. I think
Kelly, watch your show.
It makes us all better. It makes us all better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Speaking of making us better, you have made me better, Tima. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I
really enjoyed your questions. Some of the best ones. I've been on a few podcasts, and these were super inventive and thoughtful. Thank you.
Design Hardware's newly remodeled showroom is where you will find a gallery-style space with a thoughtful display of products, purposefully positioned to allow unbridled exploration and discovery. High-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware selections are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find your inspiration. Collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your shopping list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd Street in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Tima, for taking the time to share your thoughts. Thank you to my incredible partner sponsors, Thermosol, TimberTech, Pacific Sales, Monogram, and Design Hardware, amazing companies and great friends to the trade. So please give them an opportunity for your next project. And thank you for listening, subscribing to the show, and sharing it with your colleagues and friends. If not already subscribing, please consider doing so, that you receive every new episode the moment it's published. Until next week, thank you for sharing this time together. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. And until the next episode, be well, stay focused, and above the chaos.